The day my son was taken from me, I didn't even realize what was happening. The world around me felt like a blur, shadows moving in and out of focus, voices muffled as if I were underwater. They told me he was dead before I could hold him, before I could feel his tiny fingers wrap around mine. A stillborn, they said. My heart shattered into pieces that day, but little did I know the truth would break me even further. I signed papers that confirmed my son's death, all while under the haze of anesthesia. My hand trembled, though not from grief. It was the drugs coursing through my veins, clouding my mind. "Your baby's gone," they whispered, their words slicing through whatever strength I had left. How could I argue? How could I fight when I couldn't even think straight? That moment wasn't just the loss of a child, it was the theft of my identity as a mother. And for years, I believed them. I carried the weight of that lie on my shoulders, heavier than any burden I'd ever known. But then cracks began to form in the perfect facade they had built for me. Whispers reached my ears, stories about other mothers who had been told their babies died, only to discover later that those children were alive, sold to wealthy families across borders. Every word felt like a dagger twisting deeper into my soul. Was my son one of them? Had I let them take him without so much as a scream? The guilt consumed me, gnawing at my insides until there was nothing left but an empty shell of who I used to be. Every night, I replayed the scene in my head. The faint cry I thought I heard after giving birth. The way someone rushed past me with a bundle wrapped in white. At first, I convinced myself it was paranoia, a trick of memory warped by pain and exhaustion. But the more I dug, the clearer the picture became. It wasn't paranoia. It was instinct screaming at me to wake up, to find him. Somewhere out there, my boy might be living a life completely unaware of who he truly is or where he came from. And yet, every lead seemed to vanish like smoke. Every door slammed shut before I could step through it. The hospital staff refused to help. The police dismissed me as delusional. And everyone, including myself, questioned whether I was losing my sanity. But deep down, I knew the truth. My son was alive, breathing somewhere far away from me, and I would move heaven and earth to bring him back. Because no matter how hard they tried to erase him from my life, he will always be my son. Always. The search for answers led me to Nana Serhivna, the one person who could have held the key to unlocking the truth about my son's disappearance. She had been there that day. She was part of the hospital staff when I gave birth. But now, every time I tried to approach her, she seemed determined to evade me. Her eyes darted nervously whenever our paths crossed, and her voice trembled as though weighed down by secrets too heavy to bear. "I don't know anything," she stammered repeatedly, yet her actions betrayed her words. One evening, after cornering her in an empty hallway, she slipped a crumpled envelope into my hand. Inside was cash, more money than I'd ever seen at once. "Just stop asking questions," she whispered hoarsely, glancing over her shoulder as if afraid someone might be watching. My blood boiled. Did she think I could be bought off so easily? That I would trade away my own child for silence and comfort? But Nina wasn't just avoiding me. She was running from something much bigger. A few days later, while scrolling through social media late at night, I stumbled upon a video that sent chills down my spine. It showed a clandestine meeting between several nurses in what appeared to be a storage room within the hospital. Their faces were illuminated only by the dim glow of their phones, but their hushed tones carried unmistakable urgency. One nurse mentioned names of mothers whose children had vanished under suspicious circumstances. Another spoke of payments made to doctors and administrators. The implication was clear. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a well-organized operation, a shadowy network trafficking newborns out of the maternity ward and into the hands of wealthy buyers. As I watched the footage, My mind raced back to the moment Igor was taken from me. Was he one of those babies? Had he been sold to strangers without a second thought? The very idea made me sick to my stomach. And then there was Nina Serhivna. Her evasiveness suddenly made sense. She wasn't just protecting herself, she was complicit in this nightmare. How many other lives had they destroyed? How many families torn apart by greed and corruption? Determined not to let them win, I decided to dig deeper. If Nina wouldn't talk, perhaps others would. I began reaching out discreetly to former patients of the hospital, piecing together fragments of stories that all pointed toward the same horrifying conclusion. The more I uncovered, the angrier I became, and the more resolved I felt. These people had stolen everything from me, but I refused to let them take my hope. Somewhere out there, my son was alive, and no matter how long it took or how hard the fight became, I vowed to bring him home. The deeper I dug, the more resistance I encountered. Every step forward felt like wading through quicksand. Every clue came with a price. Every truth demanded sacrifice. The police were no help. They dismissed me outright, their condescending stares branding me as nothing more than a hysterical woman chasing shadows. "You're delusional," one officer sneered after barely glancing at my evidence. "Go home and get some rest." Their indifference stung worse than any insult. They weren't just ignoring me. They were mocking my pain. But what hurt most was realizing that their refusal to act wasn't mere laziness. It was complicity. Someone had paid them off, or worse, intimidated them into silence. Then came the hospital's subtle threats. After my confrontation with Nina Serhivna, strange things started happening. A car followed me home late one night, its headlights glaring in my rearview mirror until I pulled over, trembling. Anonymous calls filled my voicemail, distorted voices whispering warnings like, "Stop digging or you'll regret it." My mailbox was vandalized twice within a week. And yet, none of this compared to the suffocating realization that the corruption ran far deeper than I'd imagined. As I pored over birth records and cross-referenced names, patterns began to emerge, patterns too deliberate to be coincidence. There weren't just 2 missing children. There were dozens. Dozens of mothers robbed of their babies, dozens of families torn apart for profit. Each discovery shattered me anew. One mother told me how she'd been drugged and coerced into signing papers declaring her baby stillborn, a story eerily similar to mine. Another recounted waking up alone in recovery, only to be told her newborn had severe health issues requiring immediate transfer to another facility. Neither child was ever seen again. These stories weren't outliers. They were part of a systematic operation, an assembly line of stolen lives feeding into an insatiable market. But the worst moment came when I stumbled upon Igor's file buried among the others. His name stood out starkly on the page, confirming my darkest fears. He hadn't been spared either. For years, I'd clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, he had escaped whatever fate befell the other children. Now, even that fragile illusion crumbled beneath the weight of reality. He wasn't safe. He never had been. Despite everything, the fear, the exhaustion, the constant sense of being watched, I couldn't stop. Each obstacle only fueled my resolve. If the world refused to believe me, then I would force them to see the truth. Those people thought they could silence me with intimidation and lies, but they underestimated one thing: a mother's love is unyielding. They stole my son, but they couldn't take away my determination to bring him back. The more time I spent with Igor, the deeper my feelings grew. At first, it was just a flicker of hope, a fragile belief that he might be my lost son. His smile, his voice, even the way he tilted his head when he spoke, it all felt hauntingly familiar. The thought consumed me. What if fate had finally brought us back together? Every moment we shared seemed to confirm my suspicions. When he confided in me about his struggles, I saw vulnerability in his eyes that mirrored my own pain. He wasn't just a student anymore. He was someone I wanted to protect, to cherish as my own. And then the truth hit me like a freight train. We were mother and son, we were siblings. The revelation shattered everything I had built between us. My love for him, which had once been a beacon of hope, now felt like a betrayal of nature itself. How could I face him? How could I look into those eyes and not see the brother I never knew I had? But the cruel irony didn't stop there. Just as I grappled with this devastating reality, Agora's accident left him broken physically and emotionally dependent on me. "Don't leave me," he begged one night, his voice trembling with desperation. "I need you." Those words cut through me like a knife. How could I explain that loving him wasn't an option, that our bond was forbidden by the very blood that connected us? Yet how could I abandon him when he needed me most? Each day became a torment, torn between the pull of my heart and the weight of morality. His recovery was slow, agonizingly so. Every small victory felt bittersweet. When he took his first steps after weeks of lying motionless in bed, I clung to him, pretending it was joy rather than guilt driving my tears. But the guilt was relentless. It whispered in my ear during sleepless nights, reminding me of every stolen glance, every touch that lingered too long. I tried to distance myself, but Igor only clung tighter. "You're all I have," he said once, his voice barely audible. "If you go, I'll have nothing." And yet staying felt equally impossible. Every interaction carried the weight of unspoken truths. Our conversations, once filled with warmth and laughter, now simmered with tension. Was he aware of the storm raging inside me? Did he sense the invisible barrier I had erected between us? I couldn't tell. All I knew was that I was trapped in a web of love, duty, and secrets too heavy to bear. The accident that left Igor fighting for his life wasn't just a tragedy. It was a wake-up call, one that shook the entire class to its core. Word spread like wildfire. Igor had crashed his motorcycle late at night, leaving him clinging to life in intensive care. The students who had once pushed him away with cruel indifference now sat together in stunned silence. Guilt hung heavy in the air as they replayed their actions in their minds, every cold shoulder, every whispered insult. "It's all our fault," one student muttered during class, her voice trembling. "We treated him like he didn't matter," and deep down, they knew it was true. For me, the pain of seeing Igor lying unconscious in that hospital bed was unbearable. But when I learned that his rare blood type matched mine, there was no question about what I had to do. Despite my own fragile health, a result of sleepless nights and endless stress, I insisted on donating blood. "He needs me," I told myself over and over again, ignoring the dizziness that clouded my vision. As the needle pierced my arm, I focused on the thought of saving him, praying that this small act could somehow redeem me for all the ways I'd failed him before. But redemption came at a cost. Moments after the procedure, the room spun violently, and darkness swallowed me whole. When I woke up, I found myself lying on a cot in the hospital corridor, my mother glaring down at me with an expression torn between anger and despair. "How could you be so reckless?" she snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You're destroying yourself for someone who isn't even your son." Her words stung, not because they were untrue, but because they hit too close to home. Was I being blind? Selfish? Or was this simply what love demanded, sacrificing everything, even sanity? As the days passed, the guilt within the classroom only grew heavier. Students began organizing themselves, rallying around Igor in ways they never had before. They took turns visiting him, bringing gifts, and vowing to make amends once he woke up. Some even joined me in donating blood, though none shared his rare type. Their sudden outpouring of support felt bittersweet, a testament to how quickly people can change when faced with loss. Yet, beneath their newfound kindness, I sensed something darker. Fear. Fear of what might happen if Igor didn't pull through. Fear of facing the consequences of their neglect. And then there was me caught between my role as a teacher and the storm of emotions swirling inside me. Every time I looked at Igor's frail body hooked up to machines, I saw not just a former student, but the boy I once believed was my son. The boy I still loved more than I should. Saving him hadn't fixed anything. It had only deepened the tangled web of secrets and forbidden feelings binding us together. The final unraveling of my marriage to Vadim was as bitter and suffocating as everything else in my life had become. When I told him about the divorce, his first reaction wasn't anger or sadness, it was calculation. He slid a check across the table, his lips curling into a smug smile. "Take it," he said coolly. "This should be enough to stop chasing ghosts." His words hit me like shards of glass, sharp and unrelenting. Did he really think I could be bought? That my son's life was worth nothing more than a number on a piece of paper? I pushed the check back toward him, my hands trembling with rage. "You don't understand anything," I spat. "This isn't about money. It's about finding the truth you've never cared to support me in uncovering." Vadim's face darkened, but not out of guilt. No, it was frustration that I wouldn't bow to his attempts at control. For years, he had treated me like an ornament, something pretty to display, but never truly value. He loved the idea of me, the image I projected to the world, but not the broken, relentless woman I'd become. And now, faced with the reality of who I was, he recoiled. After the papers were signed and the lawyers left, I found myself sitting alone in what used to be our home. The silence was deafening, each echo reminding me of all the moments we had wasted pretending to be happy. It hurt, not because I missed him, but because I realized how little he had ever seen me. All those years, I thought he stood by my side, but in truth, he had been standing in front of me, blocking my path forward. His love, or rather, his illusion of love, had kept me trapped in a life where I couldn't breathe. But pain has a way of sharpening clarity. In losing Vadim, I gained something far more valuable: freedom. Freedom to search for my son without someone pulling me back. Freedom to confront the past without fear of judgment. And most importantly, freedom to rediscover myself, not as a wife or a mother defined by loss, but as a woman determined to reclaim her life. Vadim's betrayal stung, yes, but it also lit a fire within me. If he could so easily dismiss my pain, then perhaps he never deserved to share in my joy either. As I packed up the remnants of our shared life, I came across an old photograph of us smiling, carefree, oblivious to the cracks beneath the surface. I stared at it for a long moment before tearing it in half. This chapter of my life was over. Whatever lay ahead would be mine alone to write. And for the first time in years, I felt ready. The weight of my mother's confession hit me like a tidal wave, washing away any remnants of anger I had harbored toward her. Sitting across from her at the worn kitchen table, I watched as tears streamed down her weathered face, tears that carried decades of guilt and regret. "I didn't fight for you," she choked out, her voice trembling with sorrow. "When they told me your father couldn't afford to raise another child, I let them take you away. I was weak, so weak." Her hands shook as she clutched the edge of the table, knuckles white with emotion. "And now, history's repeating itself. I failed you then, and I failed you again when Victor was taken." Her words cut deeper than any blade could. For years, I had resented her silence, believing she had turned a blind eye to my suffering. But now, seeing her crumble before me, I realized how much she had suffered too. Poverty hadn't just robbed her of choices. It had stripped her of her dignity, her sense of self-worth, and most painfully, her ability to protect her own children. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same system that had stolen me from her arms had now stolen my son from mine. But my mother wasn't content to wallow in despair. Wiping her tears with shaking hands, she straightened her back and met my gaze with a resolve I hadn't seen in years. "We're going to fix this," she declared, her voice steady despite the quiver beneath. "I'm selling the house." My heart sank at her words. That house was more than just bricks and mortar. It was her sanctuary, the last connection she had to my father, to happier times. "Mom, no," I protested, reaching for her hand. "You can't do this. What about your health? Your future?" She pulled her hand away gently but firmly. "My future is ensuring yours," she said, her eyes blazing with determination. "I've spent 60 years carrying this burden of guilt. If selling the house means giving you a chance to find Victor, then so be it. I owe you that much and more." Her voice broke on the last word, but she quickly composed herself, unwilling to let weakness overtake her again. In that moment, I saw my mother not as the frail woman who had raised me, but as a warrior battling against time itself. She was willing to sacrifice everything, her home, her comfort, even her peace of mind, to right the wrongs of the past. And though her decision filled me with both gratitude and guilt, I knew there was no stopping her. This was her redemption arc, her way of reclaiming the power she had lost all those years ago. As we sat together in silence, the enormity of her sacrifice settled over me like a heavy blanket. Finding Victor wouldn't just heal me, it would heal us both. Together we vowed to leave no stone unturned until he was found. The moment I uncovered Victor Grigoriev's name, it felt like the universe had finally cracked open its secrets for me. After years of searching, years of relentless hope and crushing despair, I finally had a lead. My son was alive, living in another country with a family who had claimed him as their own. But this revelation wasn't just a beacon of hope. It was also the beginning of an insurmountable challenge. The Grigorievs weren't just any family. They were wealthy, influential, and determined to keep what they believed was theirs. My heart sank as I imagined the battle ahead. How could I, a single woman with nothing but determination and desperation, take on people who wielded power like gods? I spent sleepless nights poring over every detail I could gather about them. Photos of Victor, now grown into a handsome young man, haunted me. His smile mirrored mine, his eyes carried fragments of the boy I once held in my arms. Yet he looked so different too, polished, privileged, completely unaware of the truth about his origins. Each image cut deeper than the last, reminding me of all the moments stolen from us. What would he think when he learned the truth? Would he hate me for waiting so long to find him? Or worse, would he refuse to believe me at all? But doubts couldn't hold me back. Not anymore. Every obstacle I'd faced, the hospital's lies, Nina Serhevna's evasiveness, Igor's accident, even Vadim's betrayal had prepared me for this fight. I wasn't the same naive mother who had let her son be taken without a scream. I was stronger now, fueled by years of pain and resilience. And I knew one thing for certain: no amount of wealth or influence could sever the bond between a mother and her child. Still, the road ahead seemed impossibly steep. The Grigorievs had lawyers, connections, and resources far beyond anything I possessed. They wouldn't give up Victor willingly, not when he represented not just a son, but a legacy. I envisioned courtroom battles, media scandals, and endless hurdles designed to wear me down. But none of that mattered. Whatever stood in my way, I would tear it apart brick by brick if I had to. For Victor, I would become unstoppable. As I packed my bags for the journey overseas, my mother placed a hand on my shoulder. "You're doing the right thing," she said softly, though her voice trembled with worry. "Just promise me one thing." "Anything," I replied. "Don't let them break you. No matter how hard it gets, don't stop fighting." Her words echoed in my mind as I boarded the plane, staring out at the horizon where my son waited, unaware that his real mother was coming for him. This was more than a mission. It was a vow etched into my soul. Victor was my blood, my heart, my unfinished story, and I would move heaven and earth to bring him home.